If you're wanting to improve your fitness, health, and endurance, then thankfully you're in the right place. Many people have this goal, but perhaps aren't too sure where to start. Or maybe they've tried and failed so many times that they've just given up hope. The truth is, if you want to start seeing results, and there's nothing more motivating than seeing results, then you need to train smart. And this comes from developing an understanding of how fitness works, the different energy systems, heart rate zones, and the most optimal training protocols for achieving particular goals. So that's what we'll go through today. So the first thing that you need to be aware of is that there are different types of cardiovascular fitness. Fitness is a very broad kind of umbrella term that can be broken down into more specific categories. For example, elite marathon runners, elite basketball players, and elite sprinters are all incredibly fit human beings. Yet, the type of fitness that they excel at is specific to their individual sport or event. Marathon runners need endurance, sprinters need power and speed, and basketball players need a combination of these two with an additional focus on moderate to high intensity work. And for example, if you made a sprinter run a marathon, or vice versa, they might not do so well as that's not the type of fitness that they've been training for. So why is that the case? So humans have 3 distinct energy systems that we utilize depending on the intensity and duration of a particular activity. And we can shape our training in accordance with which type of fitness we're wanting to improve, and therefore which of the 3 energy systems we need to focus on, whether it be sprints, moderate to high intensity work, endurance, or a combination. So these energy systems include 1, the aerobic energy system. So this is the main energy pathway for endurance training. 2, the anaerobic lactic system. This is the main energy pathway for medium to high intensity training. And 3, the anaerobic alactic system. This is the main energy pathway for speed and explosive power. So just as an FYI, anaerobic means that the pathway doesn't require oxygen, and aerobic means that it does. Now, before we get into the different energy systems, I'll get you to calculate your heart rate zones, which I'll be referencing throughout. So to get a rough idea of your max heart rate, which basically means the highest your heart rate can go before you pass out, you can use the formula 220 minus your age. So for example, if Bob is 30 years old, his estimated maximum heart rate will be 190. You can then calculate the different heart rate zones as follows. So zone 1 is 50 to 60% of your max heart rate. Zone 2 is 60 to 70% of your max heart rate. Zone 3 is 70 to 80%. Zone 4 is 80 to 90%. And Zone 5 is 90% and above. And in order to calculate a certain percentage, for example 50%, you just need to divide your max heart rate by 100 and then multiply it by 50. All right, so now that you've calculated those, we're going to discuss the 3 energy systems, which will give you a better understanding as to why there are different types or categories of fitness. So first, there's the aerobic energy system. This system is all about endurance and is used for low to medium intensity training, such as steady state running, cycling, rowing, walking, or any other activity that you can maintain for anywhere from 2 minutes to several hours. And if you spend a lot of time training your aerobic energy system, you'll become much more efficient, meaning that you'll conserve energy, you'll be able to train for progressively longer periods, your workouts won't be as taxing on the body, and you'll achieve much better results when you start to incorporate higher intensity work. So if you want to build your endurance capacity, you need to be doing steady state cardio at a slow to moderate pace, which could include running, walking, cycling, swimming, rowing, or any sort of cardio machine such as the cross trainer or Stairmaster. And if you're just getting back into fitness, or if you're new to fitness, I would definitely recommend keeping most, if not all, of your workouts aerobic, and then once that's solid, you can start to add more variety in terms of intensity. So there's a common saying amongst endurance runners, which is run slower to go faster. And this is because if you prioritize Zone 2 and Zone 3 training, which may be slower than you're used to, you'll soon be able to run at faster and faster speeds whilst maintaining the same low heart rate. So to build endurance using aerobic training, you want to keep your heart rate in the Zone 2 to Zone 3 range. And if you don't have a heart rate monitor, a good rule of thumb is that you should be able to comfortably maintain a conversation whilst training aerobically. And if you can't, then you've probably exceeded these zones. 20 to 30 minutes doing any of the following could be a good place to start before gradually increasing the duration and how many sessions you do each week as your body starts to adapt. Next, there's the Anaerobic Lactic System. So this system is used for medium to high intensity bursts of activities, usually lasting between 10 to 90 seconds. And this is the primary energy system used for most sports, such as basketball, tennis, soccer, and also for fast runs which aren't flat out sprints, such as 400 to 800 meter distances. So focusing your training on the anaerobic lactic system will improve your performance in this moderate to high intensity range. And for this type of training, you want to keep your heart rate primarily in zone 4, which is 80 to 90% of your maximum heart rate. So here are some examples of workouts that will target this energy system. So something to keep in mind is that spending a lot of time using the anaerobic lactic system within a single session will cause waste products such as lactic acid to accumulate in the body. And this creates all sorts of unpleasant sensations, which will eventually cause you to stop training, including a burning sensation in the muscles, shortness of breath, and fatigue. The best way to improve your lactate threshold, meaning that you'll be able to train for longer before this buildup of lactic acid starts to occur, is to incorporate what we call threshold workouts, which are longer durations of cardio, typically 10 to 20 minute intervals, at a moderate to high intensity with your heart rate remaining in zone 4. Here are some examples of threshold workouts. And finally, we have the Anaerobic Alactic System, which is also referred to as the Phosphagen System. So this system is used for short, explosive bursts of very high intensity exercise, up to about 10 seconds in duration. So this system is relied upon for things like 50 to 100 meter sprints, a discus throw, a 1 rep max of your squat or deadlift, or an explosive movement like a box jump, broad jump, power clean, or snatch. So if you're wanting to get faster, more explosive, and improve your ability to flat out sprint, then you should focus your training on the Phosphagen system. And for this type of training, you want your heart rate to be in zone 5, which is 90+% of your max heart rate. Keep in mind that you won't be able to sustain this type of training for very long, and it can be highly taxing on the body. So make sure that you allow time for recovery in between sessions. Here are some examples of workouts targeting the Phosphagen system. Alright, so hopefully you've learned a thing or two about training protocols for the 3 broad categories of fitness, being endurance, moderate to high intensity training, and speed/explosive power. A few more tips. When starting out, regardless of your specific fitness goal, I would recommend focusing on aerobic training, i.e. keeping your heart rate within zones 2 to 3. This may seem slow and unexciting, but if you can establish a really solid aerobic base and endurance capacity, you'll be able to train for longer durations and at a higher intensity whilst keeping your heart rate low. And this is going to make it a whole lot easier to make progress with higher intensity training later on. Once you've developed a solid aerobic base, I'd then start to incorporate training that's focused on the anaerobic lactic system. So moderate to high intensity training with your heart rate in zone 4. From here, adding in sprints and explosive movements to develop your phosphagen system is optional and really only required if your goal is centered on improving your sprinting speed and explosive power. So here's a brief summary of my recommendations for developing the 3 broad categories of fitness, being endurance, moderate to high intensity work, and speed. Keep in mind that you don't want to be doing too much high intensity work or you'll burn yourself out and won't be able to adequately recover and make progress.